For more than 5 years now, Loose Men has explored what it means to be a man. And we're really glad to be back, especially during this Mental Health Awareness Week. And we're very conscious of that. Now, since we started, some things have changed for the better. No doubt about that. Men are talking about mental health more, talking about their feelings more, about their emotions. But at the same time, we look at the rise of those awful toxic influencers and the so-called Manosphere, an online space where misogynistic views are shared and discussed. And it's made modern masculinity feel, I guess, more confusing than ever. Many women, including many of the loose women, are asking men to do more to challenge all this toxic behaviour and basically call it out. Get out of your comfort zone, blokes, and call it out. In a survey for this show, 60% of you told us it's harder to be a man today. So we're calling this part of the show, very simply, How to Be a Man, because for young guys especially, it can be kind of confusing, Jordan. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people trying to drag you in. Yeah. Social media is very clever. It can convince you you're thinking the right thoughts when they're the wrong thoughts. Sure. It's tough.
Yeah, I think post-social media and the ability for people who somehow have the time to stream for 6-7 hours a day, who I don't think are reflective of some of the brilliant men I see in community who are spending most of their time, like filling out application forms or like going to the local park and picking up litter. Like, these are the people in the community we should be aspiring to see. However, on social media, men who have literally nothing better to do than stream all the time. And I'm not going against all streamers, but it just seems that narcissism perhaps and that kind of method seems to be an attractive partnership. But I'm not sure when they say if it's harder to be a man now. I would be interested to know when they're comparing, what time they're comparing that to. I think right now we have an opportunity as boys and men to be part of a much more harmonious community and show up for everybody in our lives. And I think, I don't think what's being asked of us is that much, to be honest. We're not. I don't think we should be perfect. I think for young boys, there was definitely been a phase online where there's been some vitriol, specifically towards men, which might be quite hard to contextualise for them, for young minds, adult conversations that they don't perhaps understand the real consequence of. But look, it's our responsibility, I think, just to listen and show up for people and have a genuine interest in the experiences of, half of the world, and that being women. I think it's really important to just understand what it is women are saying, listen, and take heed, take note, take guidance. A lot of the time people say to me, oh, you should say this because boys will listen to you, and I think that's important, but why aren't boys also listening to the women in their lives? I mean, women have been incredibly important to my stability, to my inspiration, to my ideas, my invention. I think it's case by case. I think gender can be quite reductive with these things.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think you hit on something there. Maybe just expectation of men has been corrected, and correctly so. Maybe that's the thing some people find difficult, Spencer. The role hasn't changed; it's been kind of made right. The expectation, right?
Sure. I think a few men are confused as to what their role is nowadays. I think, whether it be right or wrong, the role of a man was probably more defined in previous generations. Yeah. I think men are expected in many ways to do more nowadays, and what used to be what a man would strive to be is no longer enough, right? You need to have kind of more strings to the bow, you need to be more available, you need to work very hard and also be, around for your children and have spare time to do, additional things than just provide. But I think that the way the world is now is better. I have a very equal relationship with my wife, which I completely adore. We both work, we both share, responsibility, and there's no ego in that. I think that there is a wedge being driven between men and women by some toxic influencers who suggest that you cannot be a man without having power, without having dominance, without having this male ego, and women should almost be lucky to be around you, be subservient to you, and it's almost quite juvenile and dated messaging, and there's a reason that it only influences young children, because modern day men and the modern day men that I know are exceptional examples of masculinity. They're great fathers, they work hard, they strive to do well, they're kind, they're considered, and we almost wouldn't be aware of this manosphere, were it not for great documentaries like Louis Theroux's and certain things online. But I think it's our responsibility as men, firstly, to have a firm stance against the toxic masculinity that's giving men a bad name, full stop. And you know, try and set a great example for young people, starting probably with your own children.
I want to just hit on that, guys, actually, just quickly, because it's important we discuss this. It's something the Loose Women spoke about recently. It's the expose of, I can't believe this actually happens, a global rape academy where men go online to encourage one another to drug and abuse their wives. I can't believe this exists, Jeff, but it does exist. And I guess if you get to that stage of things, it's not almost too late, but how do you stop kids or men going in that direction in the first place? You've consciously kind of worked on what it's to be a man in the modern world, and you're always working on it. So what advice would you give to people out there?
I think I've had to be quite versatile in my life. 17 years ago when the boys lost their mum. I don't like the term you become mum and dad. I think that's disrespectful to the mum, that it will always be the mum. I had to become really quite sort of like a hybrid version between the two, which meant looking into softening, which meant looking into sort of sharing more vulnerability. And these are all great lessons that I benefited vastly from. So my advice, if you're asking, it's to kind of look into what it is to be vulnerable and take the courage to be able to name something truthfully. It makes you more accessible. It makes you easier to have a relationship with, to stop reacting and actually be able to respond, which means actually checking in with yourself and your nervous system before you actually react or explode to something that you don't like or triggers you. If you do feel like you're triggered by something, go and speak to someone to understand the effects of your child and any trauma that you've had, so that you can be better than that and go beyond it. It's possible for all of us, and the work is there to be done. I recently went to a men's retreat, Young Masked Man. I learned so many incredible things about myself. I released anger that I didn't realise I had. A lot of men feel really shamed for feeling anger, but it's quite a normal and can be a healthy emotion, but only obviously if shared in a healthy way, in a healthy environment. So even the people that you surround yourself with is very important. Also, making sure you're a part of a community, which means that you are getting a variation of different role models, if you like, and to be of service. You know, a lot of us are looking for what can we receive. To actually be of service is something that will round you and make you maybe a better man.
And how can we make sure things like this online rape academy don't exist? What kind of person, Jordan, logs onto something like this, gets involved in something like this? It is so shocking.
I think we need to be very clear, I think, as men and as a community, that we have a really zero tolerance on this kind of behaviour. This extremity where it's premeditated and shared and spoken and discussed. I have very strong views on this. I don't think we really understand we clearly don't understand how impactful and the ramifications of surviving sexual violence. I really, really strongly feel with all of my heart that we need to really understand how much that can ruin someone's life. And those people, at the very, very least, should be ostracised from any form of community. Men should feel as though they're risking any form of cohesion with community. There should be no support, shouldn't be any engagement. And I think it should be further than that, to be honest, because even the most extreme punishment will be merciful in comparison to what these survivors have to experience for the rest of their life.
Because they carry it for life.
They carry it for life, and I want that eradicated from anyone's experience, men and women, by the way. There are a lot of male survivors who would completely, I think, would understand where I'm coming from, and they live with shame and confusion and guilt, and the more we talk about that openly and understand and give space to feel compassion and empathy truly, I'm hoping that it will deter and bring a sense of connection in not wanting that to ever exist in the human condition as a desire. I
know you speak about this on your podcast a lot. If you want to hear more from Jordan on this, you can jump on there and hear. Thank you, Jordan. There. Good stuff. If anything we've discussed has affected you, you can find support and information at itv.com/helplines.